Petrol 6R4, Ford RS200, short wheelbase Audi Quattro, Lancia Delta Integrale, Celica GT4, Subaru Impreza P1, Mitsubishi Evo.
Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped, and welcome to the Toyota GR Yaris. Now, I absolutely love what I call driver's cars, the cars that give you that visceral feeling, that engage you in the process of driving. And this has got to be one of the most hotly anticipated driver's cars for many, many years. And I've been trying to get my hands on one of these for ages, but thanks to Hendy Toyota in Bournemouth, I finally got one. This is their demonstrator, and because of lockdown, they're not able to let it out to normal customers, so they've been able to lend it to me for a few days, but they are still open for online orders, click and collect, and their service department is still open, so I'll put their details below. But massive thanks to Hendy Toyota in Bournemouth and the Hendy Group for supporting the channel again. Anyway, back to this car. So yes, this is the Toyota GR Yaris, although let's get this one out the way straight away. Yaris. The only thing that this has in common with a Yaris are the front and rear headlights, the door mirrors, and the little shark fin antenna. Oh, and maybe the name badge. Everything else is completely bespoke, a brand new car, and what an exciting formula. A really powerful little 3-pot turbocharged engine, 4-wheel drive, manual, 6-speed box, and looks to die for. I think from the outside, this car absolutely nails it for me. The front end view, when this car's behind you in the mirror, this front wide hips and wide front end, big wide track, big gaping front grille and big opening for the intercooler. It just looks mega from the front. And then you come round the side and you've got lovely little touches like carbon fibre roof to lower the centre of gravity. And then the back, this is where the story of this car starts to make sense. This is where, for me, the intrigue starts. Now, anybody who considers themselves to be a petrol head will, I'm sure, already know the story behind this car, but I'm going to tell you it anyway. A road-going homologation special. I started this video with some of the most iconic road rally cars ever, and could this be the next one? Well, sadly, the story kind of doesn't finish how Toyota wanted it to. Basically, Toyota wanted to update their WRC car, and in order to do that, they needed to homologate a certain number of road-going cars, and that's where GR Yaris came from. Sadly, then the coronavirus global pandemic hit, and due to budgetary cuts and testing issues, Toyota decided to run their last year's car this year, and then unfortunately in 2022 the rules change and a completely new spec of car is required, and this car will never actually fulfill what it was designed to do, and that is to be a world rally car. But that's good for us because it means we still have it. Now, a couple of things if I owned this car I would have to do instantly. Number one, it would have to have a proper set of really nice big rally mud flaps. Number two, I'd have a big light bar, a big long bank of LED headlamps stuck on the front, and then maybe a rally inspired wrap. Finally, I would do that YouTuber thing and wrap my car. But the other thing, this sloping roofline and this carbon fibre detailing, obviously it lowers the centre of gravity, but the sloping roofline, yes, it hampers rear seat passenger room, yes, it hampers boot space. But the reason it's like that is because the plan was on the WRC car was to have this gigantic wing sat on the back, which, let's face it, it would be very cool if you could get one of those on as well. But it does mean that this car isn't as practical as you may think. For me, I'd consider this more to be a 2+2. The rear seat passenger room is very cramped and the headroom is very, very limited. And boot space, well, boot space is not great because even when you lift under the floor is where the battery can be found, and that takes up quite a lot of space. So basically it's not the most practical car in the world. If you're going to buy this car for practicality, probably not for you. The other negative we need to probably talk about is on the inside of the car, and we'll get all the negatives out the way and then we can start talking about the positive, because believe me, there is so much positive about this car. It's properly ace. Ugh. Now then, before I go too negative about this interior, let's just put some things into perspective. What Toyota did by homologating this car and basically building it from the ground up is incredible. And then to put it to market at a price point of, well, these cars start in the UK at £5 under 30 grand is incredible. And you've only got a limited amount of budget. And what's absolutely noticeable from almost the first 5 minutes you drive this car is the money's been spent in all the right places, but they didn't quite have enough to finish it off. And what I mean by that is inside this cabin, some of the material choices are a bit dodgy. There's lots of horrible scratchy plastics, and that screen, one, I think it looks really awful, and the gap between the rear view mirror and the screen, as every reviewer that has done this car says, is really tiny, and it does block the view quite a lot. But also, I just don't think it's a great MMI, and this car doesn't even have sat-nav. I mean, yes, I can use Apple CarPlay and connect my phone, but interestingly, there's nowhere to put your phone. There's a little kind of mat here, but it's horrible scratchy plastics and the phone flies off. So at least you need some kind of rubber or some kind of, tactile surface there. You got a USB port and a 12-volt charger and stuff, but it's not the best appointed cabin. So I think if you're going to buy this car to live with and you want a bit of luxury and a bit of practicality, that probably rules the car out for you. However, if you want a car that's going to absolutely rock your world when you push that start button, this is it. So the things I do like in here, I love the look of these seats, although I can't quite get into the right position. I almost feel like I'm sat on the car rather than in it. And this steering wheel doesn't have enough adjustment for me. It needs to come down a little bit and it needs to come closer to me. So I'm not in the perfect driving position. We're going to talk about this when we get out on the road. I think that's one of the best manual gearboxes I have ever driven. It is stunning. It's notchy and short. The gear lever's been lifted a bit so it kind of is closer to the steering wheel. It's those little things, it's those driving bits of finesse that make this car fantastic. Let's just have a chat about what's under the bonnet. The world's most powerful three-cylinder engine. It's a 1.6 three-cylinder turbocharged engine. 257 bhp and 266 foot-pounds. It's a proper little engine that. It sounds brilliant, although that sounds mostly pumped through the speakers by the car. It will do 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds and on to a top speed of 143 miles an hour. This car is no slouch, but what I love about this car is it is a usable amount of power, and believe me, 260 horsepower in a car this size is a lot of fun, driven through a manual 6-speed box and 4-wheel drive. What's not to like? Come on, let's get some cameras set up and go for a drive. Now then, important things before we really start pushing on. First things first, this car has 3 drive modes, and that impacts the 4-wheel drive system. It has normal, sport and track, and it basically impacts the bias of the 4-wheel drive system. In normal mode, you get 60% of the power to the rear wheels, 40% to the front wheels. Sport mode, 70% to the rear wheels, 30% to the front wheels, and then track mode is 50-50. You just rotate the little selector down here. I've been driving it in sport all the time, and it's just got a really nice feel to it. I don't think, unless you are an absolute and utter hero, you're going to be drifting sideways out of corners in this car because it has so much mechanical grip. But coming out of T-junctions and things, you can feel the back playing and slipping far more than something like my Clubman or the Quattro Audis I've owned in the past. The other thing that you need to do in terms of setup, because whoever designed the pedal layout in this car clearly had never heel and toed before, because unless you're wearing flippers, I just physically can't get my right foot to cover the brake and the throttle at the same time. But there is a rev matching feature, and again there's a little button down here called IMT. Hit that and then you get rev matching and the car does it for you, and it does it pretty well. Now, although I've said this car starts from 29,995, really you want to spend the extra £3,500 to get the circuit pack, because that gives you some really tasty goodies. Firstly, you get these lovely 18-inch forged wheels shod with the best tyre in the game, Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tyre. I believe that's the first time Michelin have done that in an 18-inch. You also get torsion limited slip diffs at front and rear, slightly different suspension setup, and honestly that is worth every penny. It's mega, and I think, don't consider this car to start at 30 grand. It doesn't. It starts at 33.5, because you have to have the circuit pack. Becoming a big fan of 3-cylinder engines. I'm not becoming a big fan of this lane departure warning that you just can't turn off. This little motor we've got in front, not only is it apparently the smallest, lightest and most powerful 3-cylinder engine ever made, it's a real cracker. It revs beautifully. It's a bit gutless low down, I must admit, so you do have to kind of give it a bit of revs just to get it off the line. But oh my goodness me, once it's going, it's just brilliant. Now, in terms of the noise you're hearing, that really isn't the engine. It's being piped through the speakers. It doesn't make a great sound on the outside of the car at all. But half of me sits here and thinks, you know what, I don't really care, because it sounds good. It's fooling my brain into thinking it's a nice little engine, and then you've got that most fantastic punch out the corners, and you've got a 4-wheel drive platform, so you can really push on. And the lovely thing about the car is it's not ridiculously fast. It's you can really rev it out, and you're not going to be in trouble with the law. Well, you are eventually, but you can really enjoy a B road like this. It is a sensational little car to drive. The steering feel is great. The suspension is firm, but then I'd expect it to be firm, but it just has a brilliant way of soaking up all the little bumps. Apart from the lack of sat-nav, the car does have quite a bit of tech. It's got radar adaptive cruise control, it's got lane departure warning and departure assist, which keeps beeping at me. So it does have quite a bit of tech on it, but forget all that, forget the rubbish interior. This car is all about how it drives. And it drives just how you imagine it would do, just how good you imagine it would be. It's brilliant. Emotional car to drive this. Just try this rev match down. It's just one of those cars that puts a smile on your face. It delivers. You're able to push on a really, I mean, it doesn't drive slowly well. It wants to go fast, this car. It encourages you to go quick. Let me just demonstrate something. Trying to get off the line quickly, doing, if you like, a 0 to 60 test in this is actually pretty tricky, because you really do need to rev it almost to spool the turbos up, and then it ducks down, but then once it's going, there you go, 60 miles an hour. It's a quick little car because it doesn't weigh very much. it only weighs 1,280 kilos. So with the power it's got and the four-wheel drive and the traction that it's got, it's a quick little car. But I can't sit here and not think about how good a GP3 would be had Mini had the, I don't know whether it's the financial wherewithal or the drive to do what Toyota did with this car. If Mini had homologated the GP3 with the same engine as I've got in my Clubman, the 306 horsepower, 450 Newton meter engine, if they'd homologated that to a 6-speed manual box and a four-wheel drive system in the Mini hatch, you'd have a Mini version of this, and for me that would just be an incredible car. This is almost like the love child of my Mini JCW Clubman and my Mini JCW Roadster. All the bits I love about my Roadster, the small darty footprint, the little direct steering, look at that, and the manual gearbox and the 3 pedals, and then all the things I love about my Clubman, the four-wheel drive, the sheer grunt and the sheer go of that car. And that's what I've got in this. It's almost like a kind of mini dream car. It's really very good. Into this corner, the brakes are really nice as well. The rev match is pretty good. You almost find yourself changing down one more gear than you need, and then you can punch out the corners. Even on a wet, greasy day like today, it's got so much traction, you just end up covering the ground with so much speed and precision. The steering's got a lovely feel to it. These Pilot Sport 4S tyres are really, really very good. Come on, and then... Oh, what are my final thoughts on this little GR Yaris then, after waiting so long to drive it? This is an exceptional little car. It's not faultless. I'm not a big fan of the interior. The driving position could be better. The position of the pedals could be better. But to drive as a driver's car, this 6-speed manual gearbox is stunning. It's got one of the nicest gear changes of any car I've ever driven. The little 3-pot 1.6 turbo engine is so characterful, so revvy. It's just brilliant. And then to look at from the outside, I think it just shouts character. It's a brilliant, brilliant looking thing. And for the price point, and I've heard some people say, oh, it's a lot of money for a Yaris. This is not a Yaris. This is a £30,000 rally car. It's brilliant. And long may cars like this exist, and long may manufacturers make cars like this. For me, the biggest compliment I can give this car is this is what the Mini GP3 should have been. It's a brilliant little car, and for the money I think it's exceptional value. You just have to kind of forget where the budget wasn't spent and remember where the budget was spent. It's brilliant. Massive thanks to Hendy Toyota in Bournemouth and Hendy Group for giving me the car, but I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you have done so, please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol for plenty more content to come. And I'll see you on the next film, guys, but you take care. Drive safe.